Okay, now we're going. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hybrid Calisthenics podcast number 7 with my friend Shareen Queen. She is
I
a model, entrepreneur, and future vehicle engineer. That's her dream career, I believe. And this is the first long distance podcast. I am in America, in the US, and she is in Germany. But we are on good terms, and I can't wait to talk with her. And we're going to be talking about just anything. We'll talk about careers, social media branding, perhaps, cars, diet, fitness, how she balances her time between modeling and her studies, and so on and so forth. Shireen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for inviting me. That's my first podcast ever, and I'm a little bit nervous. I'm sitting here in Berlin, Germany, for all of you that are wondering where in Germany. And yeah,
Okay.
let's do this.
Berlin, that was one of the places, well, because I did spend some time in Germany. I went through Berlin, but I spent most of my time in Wallendar. It's near Koblenz. It's right on the Rhine. It's a very small village. I think there's like 900 people. That's
Okay,
what
I
that's
don't
where I
I don't
spent.
really know that because if
Okay.
you're from Berlin, you only know Berlin.
Okay. Oh, really? Um, that kind of makes sense. I mean, I think Germany is around the size of Arkansas, where I live. That's my state. Hello to
Probably
Crystal.
smaller.
Hello to a couple people. And it might be a little. I think it's a little bit bigger. Americans don't really know geography that well. Like if you're from America, it's the only country on Earth. So, so I spent some time in Hamburg as well, and a week in Frankfurt. In between, I was kind of stuck there. So it's really a lot of fun. I hope to visit Berlin someday. Could you tell us a little bit about just like 15 seconds about what you do? So I don't misspeak. I know you do some modeling work, I think on social media, and you're hooking up with a couple of agencies, as well as where you're studying and what you're studying.
So let's start with the studying part. I'm currently studying in Berlin, my hometown, the town I was born in. Um, I'm studying vehicle engineering, as you already mentioned, and I'm almost finished. I almost got my bachelor's degree, and yeah, the modeling career is the thing. I mainly do social media work, mainly for automotive brands like Mercedes-Benz or BMW, which I'm really proud of, and I love doing that. I found a lot of great friends there, and yeah, I don't have as much experience with modeling agencies, but I'm currently trying to get back in an agency so I can do more of the modeling stuff because it's a lot of fun.
You mentioned, yeah, it does seem like a lot of fun, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You did mention that your dream career was to work as a vehicle engineer, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Before we recorded this podcast, I already mentioned that I did an internship at Daimler the last 6 months, and I was in the exterior design engineering, which I really, really liked. And I decided for myself that that's what I wanted to do with my life. That's basically the engineering part of the design. Um, it's maybe a bit difficult to understand, but there's
No,
also
no,
a lot
that
of
makes a lot of sense.
engineering going on when you like design a car.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, but how would that balance with modeling? Ideally, would you like to do both? Because you seem to have aspirations for both.
Yeah, now that I'm studying, I don't have a lot of time, but I can choose my time really freely. And the moment I start working as an engineer, I probably do 40 hours per week, which is a lot. So that probably won't be um, that won't work with a modeling career that's like really starting or going off. You have to invest a lot of time in that also. That's why I would always choose engineering first, always. But now that I'm a student and I can choose my time kind of freely, and I can still do work on the weekends or at night if I don't have any time left, it's more suitable for my lifestyle at the moment. So I'm trying
Okay.
to use every opportunity I get for modeling.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, that's great. So it's more of like a side hustle now, while before you
Yeah,
get to your dream career, so to speak.
yeah, it's more like a side hustle. Also, Instagram, the work I do with social media shoots and stuff like that. it's no secret that we earn money with that stuff, and it's more of a side hustle. As a student, that's quite good.
That's awesome. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you can see the chat, but you have a couple of people that say Shireen Instagram fan base is here. Happy to be here. That's from Nemanja. Hello to Joanna. Hello to everyone that's coming to say hi. Thank you for joining us. And
Yeah,
to
thank you
Young,
very much.
to Young, yes, you can ask questions. Please do, because like we were talking about before, we're both shy people. You may not think
Yeah.
so, but we're both shy people. If you can help us by giving us some questions and we get some conversation going, that's fine. And we would love that. We really appreciate that. Now, I thought about this when you were telling me about this before. You were talking about being an engineer. Do you have a dream company? I guess like a lot of software engineers want to work for Intel or Google.
Yeah.
Where would you like to work?
I think my first choice at the moment would be Daimler, because I already know the people. I already did the internship. I really liked it. I really liked my team I was at, and I could really, I'd really like to work there, to be honest, after my bachelor's degree. So Daimler would probably be my first choice, but I'm also open for other car brands. But I'd like to aspire to a big company, like BMW, maybe Tesla.
Right.
Once they come to Germany. They're currently building a factory near Berlin.
Oh, really? Tesla's building
yeah.
That would actually be great. I mean, you'll have to forgive me because I am definitely, compared to you, ignorant on cars. But when people ask me about a dream car, I don't really have like dream cars. I really like my car right now, which is a Honda Civic.
What do you drive?
It's actually a Honda Civic hybrid, so I can put
hybrid.
Wow, I can pretend. Yeah, I can pretend it's hybrid calisthenics. But no, when people ask me, I don't really want, and I like, they're beautiful cars, but like Lamborghinis and cars that can go like redonkulously fast, because we don't have an autobahn.
Germany.
Yeah, we don't have an autobahn here in the U.S. And they once arrested this football player who bought this multi-million-dollar Lamborghini, and he was going like 200 miles an hour and down like the New York interstate. And he said, well, why are you arresting me? And they said, well, you're going fast. And he said, well, that's why I bought the car, so I could go fast. I don't really want to go that fast necessarily all the time. So a dream car for me would just be a Tesla. I like that because I do a lot of nearby traveling. I drive around a lot in my everyday life, and I wouldn't need to go because Arkansas is a little behind. We don't have the electrical charging ports for Tesla as freely available. But I would just have one in my garage. That'd be great. I just have it like a medium tier Tesla would be my dream car. And I drive around with that, and I'd be really happy. Oh, we actually have a lot of questions here.
All right.
Matthew Johnson says, any favorite cars of yours?
My favorite car, I think, is pretty known to people. I like classic Mercedes-Benz cars, and I own a 190e. And my absolute favorite car would be the Evo 2 version of the 190e. That's kind of the race version. Do you know DTM? It's the German thing, so yeah. You don't have to know it, but that's the DTM version, the race car version of my very own car, and that's my first choice. But in general, I just really like 80s, 90s classic cars, and yeah.
Okay, so you like classic ones over modern ones, you would say?
Yeah, definitely. So I drive my classic car as a daily, mainly because of financial reasons as a student, but also because I love it. If I would be a millionaire right now, the first thing I do would be build up this car, take all the money and put it in that old car so it could be the perfect old car, which is a lot more valuable to me personally. But I also maybe buy a new car as a daily, maybe an S-Class or something luxurious,
Oh yeah. So you do most of your own work on your own car?
Yeah, with the help of my dad. He's Meister, you would call in Germany. I don't know if there's an English term for that, but he worked for Mercedes-Benz a long time in the 80s and 90s, so he knows the cars perfectly well, and he helps me a lot. But he stands next to me and says, do this, do that, get that screw, and I do it, and he tells me what to do, you know.
Is that how you got into cars? Is through your father?
Yeah, definitely. My
Oh,
whole family is like into cars and racing cars, and that's how I got it. Yeah.
okay. No, that's actually fantastic because that's actually a question I had on my list is how you got into that. So I'm guessing maybe as a kid, when he was working on his car, you come over and you peek over the hood and he'd be like, well, get this, get that. And then you were interested in
Yeah.
that. Is that
I try
kind
to
of how that
help
went?
as much as possible.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's great. No, and the DTM you're talking about, the race version of your car, that's the one that you're posing next to in the promotional
Yeah,
picture I used, right?
right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's the
See, I
car.
sometimes do remember stuff. I've been hit in the head, but I sometimes remember
You're
that. So,
good. You're really good. You know stuff about cars.
well, hopefully I can learn a lot more from you from what we'll continue to message later on. But yeah, for those of you that are curious, the car she's talking about in the promotional, I used only one promotional picture of Shireen. It's the one where she's posing next to this blue car, I think, the BMW.
It's a black one.
It's a black one, yes.
It's a
So
black one, yeah.
that's the car she's talking about. We have several more questions actually.
All
First of
right.
all, someone asked. She said, "Oh, can Shireen read our questions as well?" And you don't have to. I can read them off for you.
If you explain to me how I can read them, because I'm scared to open YouTube Live because I'm scared that we'll have double audio.
Right. What I have is I have clicked the YouTube Live and I turned off the sound on my phone. I muted it.
Okay, maybe I'll do the same. I just
Yeah,
turn off the sound on my phone.
yeah, or whatever you're more comfortable with. I can read them as well. A couple of
I
things.
want to read them too.
Okay, okay, I can read them. Okay, um, but I'll talk a little bit about how Shireen and I met.
Yeah.
What we it's actually just like a very this is again something that I harp about a lot on is how we make things happen is through creation, and that includes creating relationships. She left a comment on my TikTok video. I think it was one of the posture one. No, actually, I think it was the questions where I was asking people because I got an influx of female followers. I actually had for a while twice as many female followers as male followers. So I wanted to know what they wanted in particular, just to get a feel for my audience. And she said that she's a 6'2". Shireen is 6'2".
That was
Um,
actually wrong. I have to
okay.
tell you. I'm 6'1".
Oh, six
I
foot
got
one.
that wrong, but yeah, that's still tall. You know.
That's still really yeah. You're definitely taller than I am. And it's okay. Everyone, especially guys, they add on like an inch or two or three to their height. So if a guy says he's 6 foot, he's like 5'5" or something.
Yeah, that was actually by accident because we have another like metric system.
Yeah. What are you in centimeters?
It's 186 centimeters.
186.
Yeah.
I'm at 175. Just for comparison, I'm not. I'm good at certain things, not at being tall. But she reached out to me and she said something about how the posture things have helped her. And I said, yeah, that's for you. She reached out to me on Instagram and we chatted. She was a very interesting, very friendly person. And I just liked her. I invited her on my podcast. I encourage almost everyone to start a podcast, but I'm trying to encourage her to start her own. I think, wouldn't that be a great podcast, guys? Just the life of a vehicle engineer, who did either does or did modeling work, depending on how your future goes, and just blogging about her everyday life. I'd read it. I listen to it. People who I think podcasts will be bigger because a lot of people they drive and they listen to YouTube videos. Like people spend so much time making their YouTube videos pretty, and they just take the YouTube video and they put it down face down in the passenger seat and they listen to it while they drive. It's or if they have a podcast on Spotify or something. People are busy, so podcasts are on the rise, I believe, and they will be on the rise. A few more things. I didn't want to overload you with questions while you were doing the thing. That's why I talked a little bit about that. Someone asked you, what motivates you to work?
What motivates me to work? Mainly my future, because I have a really, really clear picture in my head for my future, how I would like it to be, and that's what motivates me the most. And sometimes I catch myself to be lazy, and then I try to really think about what I want to, like, all the success that maybe would happen if I do that task now. So that's what kind of motivates me. And of course, giving my car a good life, all the parts he needs.
Okay.
because for that you need money, especially for old cars. You need a lot of money.
So
Uh,
it's like your child, because people talk about, it's like, well, I want to take care of my kid. So you talk about, it's like, well, I want to give my life, my car a good life. I want to give it all the parts it needs. So it's like a kid
sure,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a child. It's my car. I have a really emotional connection to my car, which sounds crazy to some people, but that's just how it is. And I only like to buy the good parts, the original parts, which are really expensive. And
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like a child.
Okay. Just you might have already said this, but just to reiterate for people who may not have heard. So what is your car that you love so much?
What about the car or the emotional connection?
No, no. Like what is the make and model, the year? Just so people have
Ah,
an
okay,
idea.
okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. It's from 1993, and Mercedes-Benz 120e, 2-liter motor, and yeah, it's a black car. I don't know
No,
what to
no,
tell you.
no.
Other
Just so people can like either Google it, because I mean, if you talk about your car, they might like, well, like I want to see the car that she's so interested in and she loves so
Maybe they
much.
should just visit my page and look at all the
Yes.
beautiful pictures I've taken with my car. There are a lot of pictures
Yeah, a
I've
lot of
taken with
pictures.
my car.
That's
Take them.
actually. I'm sorry. Go on. What were you saying?
I told them to check out the pictures I took instead of Googling pictures of other 190Es because mine is obviously the most beautiful one.
Yes, yes.
So
I have seen it, and it is very, very beautiful. I brought a tear to my eye, actually. And just for people who are coming from my page, thank you. Welcome, by the way. It's at Shareen Queen, ShareeNQueen.
wow,
Shireen Queen.
pretty good.
Yeah. Just talking about motivation, just to bounce off this guy's question. And thank you for continue to send us questions, please, because I really like the ones. I like the conversation we have going. Um, I talk a lot about mixing passion with hard work. A lot of people who like they talk about what motivates me to do things. Well, I find it enjoyable. It is hard work, but I never feel like I'm killing myself, like I'm just working myself to the bone. Because if I didn't have to make a living, if I didn't have to do anything, I'd probably be doing what I'm doing right now. I like what I'm doing. So as far as what motivates you, is it just the future, or do you just love doing what you do now? Like, especially like you like learning about the cars, the engineering of cars. Same for the modeling things, same for any other aspirations you have going on in your life. Is it your passion, or do you have like a side hobby that you like?
Um, it's actually my passion. I know before I only talked about like the success side, which is
Yeah,
also
yeah.
great and motivational, but it's also my passion. But currently in my studies, I have a lot of things I don't like in it that I'll never need in my job later.
Right,
Most mathematics stuff
right,
and
right.
yeah, so I have to really motivate myself for that because that I don't really enjoy doing. Other parts of my studies I love even like 10 times as much. So it really balances itself out. And for example, the work, I had the chance to peek into the work in that internship, and that's what I really love. That was, do you know CAD software, like CAD software? It's like a 3D software to
No,
work with parts and stuff like that. It's like Photoshop for engineers.
no, no, but I mean, now I know. Thank you. Like I'm taking notes. Well, I'm taking notes when you write, by the way, when you talk. So I'll look that up. That's
Yeah,
something that you're. So that's actually how you'll work. When you get a job in this, you'll be working in SAD, basically like a Photoshop for car engineers, and that's how you'll be making parts. Is that accurate?
um,
Designing
yeah,
parts.
that's
Sorry.
that's the main software used for making parts. But as an engineer, there's a lot of possibilities to work. You can also sit at your desk and calculate stuff the whole day.
Okay.
But that's not really the thing I want to do. I want to do more engineering Photoshop stuff, like we did with the exterior design engineering and yeah.
Okay. Actually, if you don't mind talking a little bit about the engineering part, just so we know how it's broken up. Like, for example, in web design, there's a front-end web design where people they make it look pretty much. and then there's the back end, which is more complicated, and you do the coding. And if you there's anything other than, if there's like a map or anything fancy, that's usually back end, and it costs a lot more, they're paid a lot more, and it requires more skill. Is there something like that in engineering? Do some people design where they understand cars and the mechanics, of course, but they basically design the exterior, and some people will work out the interior? How is that separated, and what aspect do you want to go into?
So basically, the design process of a car is the very first process of the car. Like, you start with the design, obviously, and that's for the creative people, for the designers, and they sketch stuff and all of that. But most of the times, the stuff they sketch isn't going to translate one-on-one to what is actually buildable. So the engineers at the design center are there to make a compromise between the creative thoughts and what is actually buildable. And yeah, that's a really short version of the job they're doing there.
No, I laugh because that's common in web design, and like which is what I do sometimes, and every other thing, to where they say, yeah, just build this, and for them it's something that's very, very complicated, but they sketch it out on paper and it looks pretty, and they're like, do this, and I'm like, I don't think you understand, I can't build this. And they say basically, well, if you really believe, yeah, you can build it. So that's funny, that's how it works. And you want to do the design part, is that what you were saying?
No. The design part is really for people that studied design and
okay.
good at this. I'm not good at. I'm also good at designing stuff, but I don't study it. So you have to have an eye for aesthetics to work as an engineer in the design compartment. But my job would be really just engineering and like making things look good, but also buildable. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, looks good. Great. A couple more questions. Now, we may have covered this, but I just want to repeat this question. I don't want anyone to think I'm ignoring them. He said, okay, thanks. Can I get her opinion on being an engineer and a model like she is? There's, sorry, I don't really understand. I think her opinion on being an engineer and a model, is she a model for the company that she likes? I'm a little bit confused. This is what he typed. I'm trying to read it. I think she's asking that if you are a model for like Daimler or the company that you want to work for in the future.
Daimler is actually the company that builds Mercedes-Benz cars, so I already did that.
Okay. So
that's basically, there you go. Yeah. I know a lot of people there, so that's basically how I got into the internship, and I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, so modeling actually led me to exactly what I wanted to do with engineering,
Okay, so that actually led into engineering.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've obviously already started the engineering studies and everything, but since I modeled I did some social media shoots for Mercedes-Benz, and I got to know some people there, and when the time came to do my internship, which I have to do for my university, my first thought was obviously Mercedes-Benz or Daimler. So I asked them if they maybe know what I could do, and yeah, they said maybe you should try that, and I was like, yeah, I want to try that. That sounds awesome, and I loved it, and yeah, both worlds collided.
No, that's actually an interesting point, because you mentioned that if you go and you become an engineer, modeling stuff will it'll either dwindle or be gone entirely. Can it morph into anything? Can you turn that into something like commercials, for example, or if you did, if there was like intra-company informational videos where they have people if you did like an ad for the company, for example, as an engineer, sometimes they have employees do that. Is that something that can turn into, or do you have a plan for that?
I don't actually have a plan for that, because I'm mainly, interested in the engineering part.
Yeah.
But if something like that would come up, I'd definitely take the opportunity, because being in a Mercedes-Benz commercial would be like the biggest dream ever. That would be so cool, seeing myself on TV, like in a fancy new car. Maybe there's one commercial for the C63 AMG they did with like a businessman in a suit, and he leaves his meeting, and instead of being chauffeured by his chauffeur, he goes to the garage and gets into his AMG and starts driving and drifting and stuff like that. And that's exactly what I want to do for a commercial. That would be a dream. But me as a woman leaving a important meeting in a suit and then drifting in an AMG, that would be perfect.
No, I think you might have an advantage in that, just because like I think they would realize like a lot of the because they do want to sell to women too. I think that would be an excellent commercial, you know, especially if they because they can do two different things, you know, because I mean I think Mercedes has done some commercials to, I guess, female empowerment, for lack of a better term. For example, if they did something to where there's a female leaving a desk, you know, and someone mistakes her for the secretary, but she's actually the CEO, you know, or she's the boss. Okay. And she leaves and like, you think she's being chauffeured, but she actually walks past the chauffeur and goes into your car and drives off. I think that'd be really cool. I think that's very reasonable for a dream. I think you can have that and other dreams. Really, I think if you're from Mercedes and you're watching this, sponsor Shireen. Then more than you are now. A couple more things.
By the way, I can't read the comments. I think you can only read the comments because it's your account. Because somehow I can't read them. I don't know why.
No, yeah, that is a bit odd. I'll have to experiment with that. I am still a noob in some ways, so thank you for joining me on this journey. But we got up to like 20 people that are watching us, so which is great for a YouTube live, I think.
Yeah. I think so too.
Someone said, "I love to see your adventures with BMW Classic. What do you like more? New car adventures like with the AMG GTR, or some specials like snow drifting with the E30?"
Oh, wow, that's a very specific question. That must be a follower.
Yeah.
I mostly enjoy the classic cars because even though the GTR is a lot faster, like I was driving really fast in that car and I had a lot of fun in the mountains also with all the curves and stuff like that. The real reason why I want to drive cars is because they are manual and loud, and I don't know, they make a lot of noise, you know, and the Evo 2, for example, it's not really a fast car compared to a GTR, but it's so much more fun for me personally to drive an old race car than a newer race car, because the GTR can basically be driven by my grandma if she wanted to. There's a gas pedal and a brake pedal, and that's all you have to do, you know.
So it's automatic.
Yeah, it's automatic and pretty fast. You know, it's also fun. They're both fun, but I personally prefer a classic car. That's just my personal preference. So the ice drifting was also really fun because that was also with classic cars, and yeah.
Okay. For some, because I know that if I don't know this, some of my followers won't. I'm sure some of your followers will. What is snow drifting, ice drifting?
Do you know what? Have you watched Tokyo Drift, the Fast and Furious film?
A long time ago.
Yeah. Do you remember how they like drift up the garage, like going sideways with the car?
Going sideways, and then like they go like that?
Yeah, that's drifting. And if you do it on ice, it's a little bit easier on the car, and it's a bit easier. You don't have to have as much power in the car, and it's a lot of fun on the snow. And we did that in the beginning of the year. So that's ice drifting, like drifting on snow.
Okay.
You can go a bit faster on snow because there you have a lot of space. Like street racing is illegal in Germany, probably in America too. So
yeah, I think it's illegal everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the purpose of that? Is it just for fun, just drifting, or is there like a race? Can you go faster in drifting? I forgive my ignorance on this.
You know, I'm not a race driver pro, but on all the racetracks you don't drift normally. But the ice drifting is basically just for fun. You can bring your own car. You don't have to have a lot of power in your own car, and you can just like go for it and try it. And maybe you do a 360 turn sometimes because you don't have a feeling for it yet, or you're a pro and you go around the track and hit every drift perfectly. So yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make a note. So my experience in Mario Kart wasn't accurate to actual racing.
Maybe you can try it with your car. You know, it's probably a front wheel drive.
Yeah, front wheel drive. You'd be so bored in my car. It is it's the front wheel drive automatic. I learned to drive on a manual actually. It was a Toyota Paseo. Yeah, I learned to drive. That was my first car. I learned on a manual. It was a lot of fun.
That's really not common in America, right? Driving manual cars.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I don't believe. Really, it's a lot of fun. It makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm moving all these levers, especially like to someone. I mean, like the younger people or some people who haven't seen a manual car. They're like, "Wow, you're moving all these levers." I'm just shifting from like from neutral to five, but it makes me feel it's a lot of fun. Yeah, and that car lasted about 6 months. I tried to drive it from Arkansas to California, and I don't think I did anything wrong, but it died out just outside of Arizona. It didn't die in Death Valley; died right outside it. It left. I forget what was the country. So with I think Payson, Arizona, which is about an hour out of Death Valley. If it had died in Death Valley, I would have been in danger. But it died right outside of Death Valley, and I sold it for scrap. And I got $200 US for it. I used that money to rent a U-Haul. I put everything I owned in my life into the corner of this big 18-foot U-Haul, and I drove the rest of the way to California. I only been driving for 1 year at the time, so that was very interesting for me. Let's see, Hampton. So
I can now read the comments. It was my fault, so now I can.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Joanna, which is a follower of my page. Welcome, Joanna. Hello. I'm so glad you're here. She says 6'1" is normal, certainly here in the Netherlands. We're on average the tallest in the world. Tallest in the world. Yeah. No, I spent a week with my friend Sandra in Denmark, and all her friends were really tall, really tall. I can't relate. I'm from Laredo, Texas. I'm 5'1". Well, you know what? I mean, you can't change your height. That's the thing. You know, like, I don't think enough people will have empathy for how other people feel, because there are people who are smaller than average. Not that you feel this way. You know, I don't want to assume, but some people, like, I know some guys and girls who are shorter than average, and they're always trying to be taller. And they're like, well, if only I was 6'5" or something. And like every person I've known that is 6'5", almost every person, you know, like they're like hunching, especially some women. I didn't realize this about women. I apologize, but a couple of the ones that I met were like 6'3", and I was like, that's awesome. And she said, no, I was made fun of in school for being too tall. I always tried to hunch, and she had a bad back, and she was seeing my father. Because of that bad back, because she hunched all the time, and I didn't realize. So there's so people who are shorter want to be taller, people who are taller want to be shorter. Hardly everyone is like completely satisfied. So it's better just to be yourself instead of, you know, trying to stretch or hunch yourself into a health problem. So, by the way, the posture stuff, just for some people that are watching who've seen the posture videos, that was very popular on my page. That was originally calisthenics for height. Like before I started hybrid calisthenics, people had asked me if they can increase height with calisthenics, and I was like, yeah. And most of it turned out to be posture. Like, I think it makes more sense for it to be posture, so I turned it into that. So if you want to be like an inch taller, even if you don't, it'll make you healthier, so do it anyway. But calisthenics, the posture stuff with hanging will make you a bit taller sometimes.
Yeah, without your posture videos, we probably would have never known each other.
Right. So again, like we create, you know, and everyone, it was originally going to be like an ebook or like a course that I sold, but had I done that, I wouldn't have met her. So when we create and we give without expectation, you know, and I'm not saying do everything for free, but when you give, you're actually getting something in return too, even if you do it without expectation. If you don't, like, if you give someone something and you expect something in return, even though you don't say so, like, here are some socks. Yeah, but now you owe me a car ride. That's manipulation. But if we give without expectation, that's charity, if that makes sense. I talk about that a lot. A couple more questions. Did you want to read some? Oh, hey, Jamie Skizep. Hampton did tell me I should have a podcast. LOL. Yes, everyone should have a podcast. Everyone should, absolutely. Almost everyone should have a podcast. That's going to be like a meme about me. Like I've noticed there's certain things I repeat a lot. So was there any question that popped out to you that you want to read?
I'm currently reading some comments. I'm a bit behind on them.
Oh, it's okay. I just
It's
didn't want to.
actually a lot.
Yeah, I know. Thank you guys for your participation. That's actually quite a bit, because I mean, some people, they like seeing like 2,000 people and the chat is always going. I like to read every comment. I like to answer all the questions I get. So this is actually perfect, because I mean, we're spending some time on the questions and going through them. So I really appreciate that if you're here.
So I saw a question that said, it's from Moritz. He says, so what's her opinion on the whole training and nutrition thing? Maybe
that's the one I was reading. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. My opinion on training and nutrition. I know there was a question. Hampton did a video or like a live session before where he asked if some of you had questions for me, and somebody asked about my fitness and health routine during quarantine now. And to be honest, before quarantine, I didn't have a fitness routine. And now that I have a bit more time on my hands, I started running again, which I love. I try to do some posture workouts from Hampton because they really seem to help me. And I feel that a lot, especially in my shoulders, because I'm a tall woman and I hunch a lot because I was always insecure about my height. So yeah, those were great. And that's basically my whole routine: running and Hampton's workout videos. And on nutrition, I'm vegan since 5 years now, and I love it. And I try to eat as healthy as possible, as a lot of veggies as possible, a lot of fruits, and lots of carbs because I'm running a lot. Yeah, that's
Right.
a very basic view on nutrition and health.
Okay, so so training, you do the posture work and jogging, and nutrition in just general, you try to eat healthy, and you are vegan, just to summarize.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about, I want to talk to you about jogging, because she actually has some very interesting views on that. But the veganism, what got you into veganism?
Since I was a little kid, as soon as I knew that there are actually animals in meat, because as a kid you have that realization at some point, I didn't want to eat it anymore. So I was a vegetarian ever since I could remember. I refused to eat meat or fish or anything like that, but I still ate cheese and stuff like that because it was normal to me. And then when I was 17, I had heard Freely the Banana Girl. Do you know her? She was pretty famous.
How do you spell freely?
Freely the Banana Girl. I don't know if she has a YouTube channel anymore, but at that time, I loved her videos, and she once said, yeah, if you're vegetarian, you could just let it be because you're not really doing anything for the animals. And I felt really triggered about that quote. I felt provoked, and I was a bit angry at that comment. So I started to educate myself a little bit about that thing called veganism, and I actually found that she was right. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe I could start incorporate a bit more vegan into my lifestyle. And after maybe 2 months, I was completely vegan and loving it. And that's how it all started. And I'm never going back. I'm pretty sure about that.
She went vegan and she's not going back. So explain to me and some of our audience what, and now so the difference, just in case someone doesn't know, the difference between vegetarianism and veganism, and what exactly were the differences that made vegetarianism like might as well not doing anything? What were the differences that spurred you to take that extra step and become vegan?
It's a really sensitive topic, and I don't want to be too aggressive about it. But what I always tell people if they ask about veganism is, if you really want to know it, go and really Google it and read studies, because that actually shows a lot more than my words.
Okay, I understand.
And it's like a moral thing, if you see those videos of the cows or the chickens or the whole like production thing, you will quickly get why it might be a better idea to not eat milk or eggs or anything.
The feeling of like why you became vegan. So yeah, you want to impart that feeling to other people. I say yeah. So she encourages you to do your own research on that. I'm sure there's lots of videos. I mean, if you just Google, like I can just imagine if you Google why go vegan, I mean, you will never be able to read all the information. So there's that. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I like that. You know, the moral aspect. Some people do it for nutrition. Some people do it for morality. Some people mix the two. So it's good to get your opinion on that. Now, as far as diet goes, because that's something a lot of people asked. In your vegan diet, you mentioned a lot of carbs because you jog. What
Yeah.
is your preferred carb? Rice?
Yeah, probably rice and pasta, but I think pasta is actually not that good for you. I don't really know. It works for me, but it might
That's what
not
they say.
work for other
I
people.
love pasta. I love pasta. What kind of rice?
I just usually go for the cheapest rice I can find in a supermarket. And I recently purchased a rice cooker, which made all the difference in
Yes,
the world. You
yes.
probably have one, right? I don't
It,
want to sound like too cliche, but
no. Actually, it doesn't bother me because um, I was given one by my parents because they grew up with rice cookers. I like making. I even to this day, I have a rice cooker in my kitchen. I make it in a pot. So I'm just
really,
yes, I'm
I
used to
don't
doing that.
understand that. I got the rice cooker maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's a one with a little net where you can also steam veggies while cooking
Oh
rice, and it's
wow,
so
yeah.
easy. It made my life like 10 times easier. I love it.
Okay, so you just get the cheapest one you can find. Is it white rice?
Yeah, white rice. I don't really care about the brand or anything.
Okay.
Probably organic would be great if you can afford
Yes.
that. I encourage you to buy organic if possible. But yeah, just any carbs I can get my hands on. You know, I came a bit prepared because I read the question from your live
Yes.
session before, and there was a girl who asked my favorite vegan dishes, and maybe I can share those for you. For breakfast, I usually like to load up with carbs because after that I usually go running, and that would be like a lot of bananas and oats and stuff like that, basic stuff. Not
Mhm.
expensive at all because people always say veganism is expensive. It's not.
That.
And for lunch, maybe a nice Thai curry with veggies and rice and tofu or tempeh, some of the good stuff. And for dinner, maybe something like a lentil soup or a chili with a lot of beans and stuff like that to get some protein. Yeah, that's what I prepared. That's what I thought about. Yeah.
Okay. Give us a shout in the chat if you would like Shireen to do like a short ebook, either for sale or for free, okay, on her vegan recipes. It's even a short one. I'm sure some
I
people would
have
like
the
that.
best. I have the best vegan recipes. You know, I have a lot of experience. I like to cook. I think I'm doing pretty well on that. So
Shareen Queen, entrepreneur, model, cook, engineer. So yes, yes, give us a shout if you'd like one because I'd be interested in that, and that's something I would spread. Because diet and nutrition is obviously a huge topic. As for rice, I'm kind of particular about my rice. I like basmati. I like brown rice. I get a lot. Now, there's some arguments about what the real difference is. That's kind of a sensitive topic. I'm not worried about addressing it, but I'll address it in a separate video. It's a good video idea. I'm going to write that down. Different kinds of rice. And as far as organic, I'm glad you brought that up because for those of you that are situated in the U.S., when I was in Germany and certainly Europe, there was a lot more, even compared to now, because I mean, there's more organic produce in America. Maybe not now, but I like as far like the current era than there was in the decades past. But there was a big organic presence in the grocery stores. I think if you see one that says bio, that's biologic. Is that
yeah, yeah,
organic?
yeah. Bayer is like organic. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like that, and if you see a sign, that's the organic stuff. They really like the organic stuff more so than a lot of Americans still. A lot of Americans still think it's a hoax. It's just a way for us to pay more money. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
No, it's a very it's a sensitive topic. Again, I mean, again, you don't even have to be a conspiracy theorist. I think to recognize that large corporations have influence, so they can spread over media and spread propaganda. So certain like whenever you see certain news stories, certain articles about this, I mean, there are certain people who don't want you to believe organic, who don't want you to buy organic. Certainly, like certain food producers, for example, who don't do organic. Um, so there may be a reason why they want you to think it's nonsense. And I actually, in my third podcast. I interviewed someone who was into agriculture. He really explains like why organic produce is more important, how it can help you lose weight, how it can help you be more healthy. So yeah, certainly something that I wholeheartedly agree on. Buy organic if possible.
Yeah, I
um,
support that. I fully support that. If
yeah.
possible, just do it.
Well, especially now, a lot of there's a meat shortage going on in the U.S. So there's a push for yes, there's a meat shortage in the sense that you can't go to. Actually, it's a big thing. As well, we have Walmart here in the U.S. We have some grocery stores, large chain grocery stores. You can't go there necessarily and get chicken and beef, but you probably have a local farmer somewhere around. If you look around, even if you're in a city, they may have a farm outside the city and they sell it inside the city. If you ask around, maybe a local butcher shop, they deal with some local farmers. You'll often find things that are organic, more healthy, and you're also supporting local businesses, and they won't necessarily be more expensive, especially if you're buying it like how we're supposed to. We buy a lot. You can put it in the freezer. So yeah, if you're worried about the meat shortage, look up local farmers, and that's a lot of them will be organic, and you're also supporting local businesses. So let's talk a little bit about the jogging, because you've mentioned how jogging is more than just fitness for you. It's also a mental thing.
Yeah, jogging is a huge mental thing and emotional thing for me because it really helps me to cope with my emotions, especially if I'm feeling very, angry that day. That doesn't really fit to my personality, but sometimes when I feel a lot of pressure and I have a lot of work to do, I tend to get a little bit angry to get it done. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes
But
sense.
after that, I really have to release it, and also if you have personal issues or family issues or any stuff like that, it's definitely a healthy coping mechanism compared to other stuff like partying or like bad stuff. Go running, it's good for you. And yeah.
No, that's actually a great point, because someone mentioned on one of my videos, like it was a couple of them. I joked that you could take your anger out with exercise, with strength exercise, and he mentioned that there are some studies that have shown that, like people who get angry and they have a punching bag in the room and they're like, I'm so angry at my boss, and they just punch it. And it's like, this is my boss, and they punch it. Some studies have shown that's an unhealthy way to take out your anger. Whereas but not necessarily in exercise. Whereas jogging is perhaps more gentle. It is more gentle than punching a punching bag.
Probably, yeah.
It you release your anger in perhaps in more of a healthy way because you are expending energy, but you're not taking it out as in hitting something. Again, that's controversial. Some people might agree, some people might disagree that there's benefits to both. But jogging as an emotional release, as a form of expression, which is what you mentioned to me,
Yeah.
is certainly a very good thing. Can you talk a little bit more about how you express yourself with jogging?
The thing is, I only like to go on a run by myself. I would never do it with friends or in a group run or anything.
Me
Running
too.
is a really personal thing for me because of like the expression and emotional thing. I like to have a really good playlist with all my favorite songs at the moment, or like songs that kind of hype me up, which can be kind of aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just go for it. And I also told you about this quote I read, where somebody was asking a runner, do you run from something or towards something? And he answered both. And I feel that's so true. While running, you can really, it's like the most natural form of movement, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really feel like if I run and I'm out of breath and I really feel my whole body, because you want to stop, but then you push yourself to do more and run faster, and you have all those endorphins coming up, like the runner's high.
Right.
And yeah, that's an emotional experience, and I would highly recommend trying it.
So as far as expression, it's almost like not necessarily expressing to someone else, as in like wearing a t-shirt or doing a speech where you're communicating with other people, but not to get too out there, but more like you're communicating with yourself, perhaps.
Yeah, totally. Because you're you know, it's an extreme situation for the body and you're all by yourself and you have to really push yourself. At least for me, it's not easy to just run 4 miles, you know, it's not
Right, right.
easy. You have to like discuss with your mind to keep on going, just keep on running. And yeah, that's probably the main thing I meant with expression, because it's a self-conflict and you
Hmm.
just keep on pushing it, and then at the end you're super happy and your body makes you super
Right.
happy, however it does that, but it works.
Oh, and by the way, just before I forget, Shireen asked if you, because I know we have some joggers in either in the live stream or people who will watch this. Well, I know we have joggers. She asked for me to do some calisthenics for running injuries, perhaps if your knees hurt or your ankles hurt. That is definitely on the way. That's a great idea. Thank you. So we'll take care of that. I'd like to mention, because I used to do a lot of running too, and it's something that I want to connect with another aspect that most people may not consider, which is a lot of people feel kind of stuck, like they're in a rut, or they feel unmotivated, or sometimes they're depressed. And running, I believe there's multiple studies that have shown running can help with depression, or just exercise in general helps with depression, anxiety, anger, like you've mentioned. And part of how that manifests, I think, is through the idea that we are so inundated with distractions, for lack of a better term, in the sense that we wake up, a lot of people check their phones, you know, and a lot of times there's some bad news and there's like the grandpa died, or if some people feel anxiety when they scroll through Instagram and they see people in their minds doing better than they are, even though it's not, Instagram isn't always reality, just FYI, breaking news. Then they see things and they're worried about that. And that bogs their brain down, and they're talking to other people, they go to work, which sometimes they don't like, and they're being yelled at. And that really slows down creativity. And if you're used to being a certain way, and you live life like that, it's a very stark difference, a very obvious difference. So something like running, a repetitive task that allows you to perhaps calm down, even though you're exerting yourself, you're calming down, you're listening to music. This actually allows your creativity to flow, because that's how I don't get my best ideas when I'm on Facebook. I hardly ever get any ideas on Facebook, because I'm focused on Facebook. I'm focused on Instagram, and I don't, when I'm talking with other people, sometimes I get ideas depending on the person. But when you're just by yourself and you get time to think, a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people, they never really get time for introspection, for where you communicate with yourself. So for people who listen to me and want my advice on certain things for motivation, happiness, you don't have to take up jogging. Even it's a very good thing, but something similar to that, or if you just want to get started, then jogging is a good way, not only for your health, but perhaps for your career and your lifestyle, because you may come up with an idea that later on changes everything. You may meet your future wife or your husband or whomever that way. You may start a future career just from an idea you get from relaxing your mind with jogging. Yeah. Sorry to go on a diatribe there. I didn't mean to monopolize the time. We are at an hour, but I mean, we have some more questions. Unless you have to go, I'd like to keep going for a little while longer.
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with the hour passed so fast. I don't know. I hope it's not boring for people listening to
No,
us.
no.
But
I
they
mean,
seem to be entertained.
yeah, no, no. Actually, we're actually increasing a bit. And I'm having a
Yeah,
lot
so
of fun.
let's keep going. I was just looking while you were talking. I was just looking at the comments, and
Hmm.
there may be more questions, because I'm amazed at how many people write comments and
Right, right.
questions, and I love that. And I found a question that was like 10 minutes ago, but maybe you're still here and I can still answer it. He answered, or she asked if I suggest any nutritional supplements, and I would like to hear your opinion on that too, because it's very interesting. Maybe I could start. You know,
Oh, go ahead and start.
I take 3 supplements, because as a vegan, you're always told to take B12, and I never did that, and I felt great. But recently, I thought maybe I should try it and just like take it and see if anything changes. So I take B12 now, and I feel good, so it doesn't hurt.
Okay.
And I suffer from migraines occasionally. And so a lot of people on Instagram actually told me to take magnesium for that, and that it helped a lot of people. So I do that for a couple of months now, and it really helps me. So for everybody with migraines, try taking magnesium. It might really help you. And since I'm a woman and women often suffer from iron deficiency, I also take iron because since I was a little girl, I don't have the enough receptors for iron. I think that's how you explain it. That's how my doctor explained it to me, and I think a lot of women have the same issue. So yeah, I take iron too.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And I've also heard the iron deficiency, in a sense. Now I've heard it. I don't know if it's true, but a woman said that she thought she had iron deficiencies, or she thought that women have iron deficiencies because they lose more blood every month than men do.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, we
Yeah,
lose a lot of blood every month, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, it does make sense. And she was saying that she was actually saying that men, because of that, have too much iron in their blood, and she was using that as an argument for donating blood. Again, I'm not for or against. I don't know that quite for sure, but it certainly seems very interesting and an interesting way to look at it. As far as nutritional supplements go, I don't take any myself. That doesn't mean I'm against it, especially because I mean we're all different. Some people may be born with certain deficiencies and things. I try to get my nutrition from food, and my reasoning for this, not that you can overdose on, like, to my knowledge, you can't easily overdose on like B12 or vitamin C or anything or supplements. But I think our food acts as a bottleneck for us having too much of something. So I mean, you can't overdose at least easily on vitamin C, but I mean, if you just take it in tablet form, it's very, like, if you wanted to, you could eat the whole bottle. Don't do that, but you could. Whereas if you want to get vitamin C from like oranges or something, because there's other stuff in that orange, it acts as a bottleneck for to prevent you from having too much of something. And I'll actually have a podcast next week with a woman who does intuitive eating, and basically, for me, it means training your body to want what it's deficient in. And if your body is tuned in a certain way, for example, if you're not having enough magnesium or iron, it recognizes what foods are lacking, what foods you need. Like, you may find yourself wanting a steak, and it's because your body recognizes that deficiency, even if your brain doesn't consciously, and you eat that. So just to summarize, I get most of my supplements and nutrition from just regular food. Now, there is an argument, and if you guys are really interested in this, Arlen Hicks is my third podcast. Again, he's the agriculturalist, or like someone who does agriculture that I talked to. He mentioned that the argument against just getting your nutrition from food is that a lot of food nowadays is it's nutrient sparse. It doesn't have as much nutrients as, and he can explain this better than I can. It doesn't have as many nutrients as it should. It has similar calories. So you gave an example of an apple that was farmed non-organically, and also a lot of other, just like farmed not in a good way, where it was not good for the soil, it wasn't good for the earth, and it's not good for the apple, and it's not good for us. In the sense that you eat it, it has the same number of calories, so you need to eat more, but it has the same number of calories, but less nutrients. So your body will want to eat more food because of its nutrient sparse, but you're getting more calories, so you're getting fat from that. That's the argument against that. But he mentioned that if you buy organic, non-GMO foods, a lot of them, and again, some of this is controversial, so if you don't like this, you can read the podcast, or you can message me and perhaps we can talk a little bit more about it, that certain foods are more nutrient dense despite being the same thing. Like an apple is not always an apple. Some apples have more nutrients and are more nutrient dense, and you don't have to eat as much, so you won't gain as much fat from the calories, but you are still getting the nutrients, if that makes sense. So to summarize, I don't take supplements. I get my nutrition from food. The argument against that is some food nowadays, because of the way it's farmed and grown, does not have the nutrients you need, or if you want to get all the nutrients, you have to eat a lot of it. And the counter argument to that is that some foods, especially organic, non-GMO foods, have the necessary nutrients.
That actually makes a lot of sense, you know, listening to that. It's great. Also, what you said about intuitive eating, I think that's a really interesting topic, because the body certainly knows best what it needs. And if you train your body to be like that sensitive about specific nutrients, as you mentioned, if you have like a deficiency, your body wants to eat exactly what makes it better, you know? So
Right, right.
pretty interesting.
No, and the woman I'll be interviewing will know more than I do about this, because it's something that I lightly, because someone told me about it, and it's like, what do you do? It's actually intuitive eating. I'm like, oh, so that's what I know about it. But I believe like you also have to balance that with addiction, because sometimes people will want a candy bar, and it's like, oh, well, my body is deficient in candy bars and sugar, so like that's why I'm getting it. So no, some of it is about tuning your body to, I'm guessing, ignore the addictions which are bad for you, and be more in tune with what it actually wants. And in the sense that you're ignoring unnecessary desires, but you're pursuing the ones that your body really needs. So that's our answer to the nutritional thing. It's actually a great topic. So thank you to the person who asked that. I'm still scrolled up so I can see the other messages. I haven't. Um, was there anything you wanted to add to that? I'm sorry.
No, not actually. I read a comment where somebody says that you should let me talk more, but actually Hampton is nice enough to dominate the conversation, because I'm a bit shy and I'm not as good in English because it's my second language. So sometimes I can't find the words, and he's nice enough to get the conversation going instead of just letting me be there in silence. So don't take that as him not letting me speak, because if I want to speak, I do it.
Right. No, I mean, I tried to like, because some people watch it for our things, and I try to have a balance. I'm still experimenting with that. I'm sorry that you want to hear Shireen speak a little bit more. If you want to hear her speak a lot, message her on Instagram and tell her to start a podcast. Okay, because I would watch that and you would watch that. So that's something you and I have in common. But certainly, if you will have any questions that you want to direct to her, I would certainly love to hear some questions, and just mention it that's to her, and I'll let her speak completely on that. So thank you. I can't quite see that, but that's my answer to that. So I'm trying to get all the questions from earlier before. Someone asked, what do you major in? That's vehicle engineering.
Yeah, vehicle engineering. That's what it's called. It's like mechanical engineering, but for vehicles, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Manuals. Lots of comments about manuals. How they like manual transmission more so. Okay, so I'm caught up to where we are. Sorry, it took me a second. So I'm trying to get through all the things. Some of them are actually just comments. Have you done any marathons? Is what she asked.
Yeah, I've read that question too. And no, I haven't done any marathons yet. I was once, when I was running a lot more, about like 4 years ago, I got registered for a 5K, which isn't a lot, but I was so scared to do it. I don't know why, but I was so scared that the day before the race started, I just canceled my registration, because I don't know why. I was scared, but maybe I'll do that as a challenge in the future. Maybe not a marathon, but a 5K at first, then baby steps. You never know.
I've run a lot of 5Ks, and I think you would like that a lot, actually. Because there's, at least in America, a lot of the 5Ks are people who, again, don't want to do a half marathon or a marathon. So there's a lot of people who don't even really run regularly. Some people will walk it. So you won't be in like a hyper competitive atmosphere, so to speak. It'll be a lot of people who are just there for fun. So it's certainly a good way to introduce yourself to it. And it's perfectly okay. At least from what I've seen, some people walk, or they run a little bit, and then when they feel too tired or they feel like they can't continue, they just walk. And at the finish line, there's like bananas and donuts, and coffee and water, and it's really a lot of fun. Especially because they're usually earlier. If you're used to waking up early, it's a good thing to do with friends or some family, because you can walk, you can run, and then if you're doing it with friends, I know you mentioned you'd like to do it alone, but it's a good bonding activity, I think. So if anyone is thinking about running a 5K, I recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think so. There's actually a big Berlin marathon that's every year, and every car owner is really pissed off by that, because they like, I don't know the English word. I forgot it. But you can't go on the streets by car. Like, they block the streets for cars, so the runners go through, and that's actually right in front of our apartment. So if you want to go home, that's really difficult. But I've already saw all of the marathon runners, and they were really happy, and they seem to be really focused every time they do that. And it looks a lot of fun. Maybe I should train for a marathon.
Right. Well, I haven't run a marathon before. The longest I've ever run is about like because I didn't it wasn't once I was going back and forth about 19 miles, I think. And I haven't done a full marathon. 19 miles. I stopped because I was running out of time, but I think after you get past a certain point, you should be able to go from 5K to a marathon fairly easily. I think a big thing would be chafing. I think so. You have the right wear the right clothes for it, especially if you're not used to running longer distances, because your clothes will chafe on your skin, and you'll end up with like not bruises, abrasions. Yeah. And also, I think you can build your way up to it. Then there's certain things that pop up. Like some people bring water or like energy snacks with them because they feel like they're not getting enough water, or the water is depleted from running a little bit longer. But yeah, something you like. Again, if you do that, I would like to see. Could you live stream that? Your adventures in running your first marathon. You can have a jogger, hire a pro jogger / cameraman. He can jog next to you so he doesn't get winded, and you can talk to your audience while you talk. I'd watch it. Do that for charity. Do that to raise money for something you like. That'd be a lot of fun, I think. Any more things from the comments? No, I think that's good. We got a lot of comments. So if you guys have any more questions, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, I have a lot more here. Is there anything you want to bring up in particular? It's okay if you don't. No, Shireen, is there anything that you want to bring up?
Then I want to bring up. I thought you was asking.
No, sorry.
Anything that I wanted to bring up? I don't know. Not really, to be honest.
Okay, no. How about this? Because we've talked about this, and not to speak for you, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You've mentioned, and we've discussed about, regardless of where you go, you already have an impact on people. Some perhaps some younger people, and you expressed interest in being a good role model for younger women. That you said you don't want to be just a hot girl next to a car. Okay, you want to know how the car works. Okay, you probably already know more about cars than most men. So can you talk a little bit about like what kind of message you want to spread? Like if they're a young woman, they're like 12 or 13, like someone representative of your younger self, what would you like to tell them? What kind of message would you like to spread to them? So on and so forth. Would you like, you can do this, you can do this, you can be both. You don't have to be one thing. Don't let society define you. What else would you say?
I visited my grandparents this weekend, and I talked to my grandma, and she asked me about all this engineering stuff because she wants to learn what I'm doing. And she told me that her parents were bookbinders. Is that the correct English term for that? Like people who bind books. And she wanted to do that too when she grew up, but she couldn't because there was considered a male job, and women were simply not allowed to do that. Which seems so strange because a bookbinder, I don't know, I wouldn't say that's a male job, but that really got me thinking that today we have so many possibilities, and like it should be. Men and women are almost equal now in terms of society, how society views us, so as a woman you're free to choose what you like to do, and still there are so many more men in my field of engineering or in the field of informatics or other STEM related stuff. I'd like to see more women in that, and of course only do that if you're actually interested in that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of girls, young women, are interested in maybe mathematics or, I don't know, engineering, informatics, but they are too shy to do it because their parents or grandparents or friends tell them, yeah, that's not a job for you, you're a girl. Or they maybe want to get like into mechanics, be a mechanic, and people tell them, yeah, you're too weak, women are too weak to do that. And That's kind of like what people told me when I said I wanted to do engineering. And don't listen to them, just do it and try it. And if you feel like it's nothing for you and you studied maybe a semester and you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not interested in that, you can still do something else. And maybe in the best case you love it and you're really good at it, and you can show other women how great this field is, you know, and how great women can be as engineers. That sounds so stupid, because there's literally no difference between women and men when it comes to engineering or jobs like that, but it's still a male dominated field. And I don't know, I kind of wanted to change that.
Well,
More
of course.
women in male fields.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people, they have unrealized potential just because they were never steered to that as a kid. Like you mentioned, working on cars with your father, and a lot of your family is interested in cars, and that's how you got into it. But like a woman or someone who's not traditionally thought to be a mechanic or an engineer, never got exposed to that as a kid, and they never really discovered their interest. That may be one of the reasons why women are underrepresented in STEM, because the number probably should be higher if people were exposed to that interest more. So if you could, I think what you're doing now is good, especially if you ever branch into younger, like teens, young teens for women. They might see that and they might see what you're doing. They'll be like, well, that looks pretty interesting. Let me try that and see if I'm any good in that. So I think influencing the younger generation is perhaps important for what that generation eventually becomes.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing, because I just saw a comment.
Yes, I saw that comment too.
Yeah, Courtney, you're probably a girl, I think. What's your favorite moment or response to someone being sexist, like the best clapback? And I don't really have a clapback, because most of these moments like really hit me unexpected. I don't know, I have to get better at clapbacks, but I wanted to mention something we talked about before this podcast, and that was at my university, actually. My boyfriend studies mechanical engineering, and he took a course which I was not taking, and I had a free term, a little bit of time left. So I joined him in his course, but did other stuff. You know, I just sat there and did my studies for my courses. And after this course, he went to the professor and asked him something, like some question about the course. And the professor was like, first of all, boy, get rid of that woman and concentrate on your studies, because that's more important. And then later in life, when you finished your studies in university, you can go and find a nice woman to accompany you. And I just stood there, like right next to him, hearing everything that professor said. I was completely hit by a truck in that moment. I didn't know what to say. You know, my boyfriend didn't know what to say either. We were both standing there like, what the heck? What just happened? And I wish I would have had a good answer for that at that moment, but I didn't, because I would never have expected that kind of answer. We didn't ask for that kind of answer.
Right. Well, I mean, regardless of his intention, he perhaps could have been more certainly aware that you were there and how it might make you feel, especially because the point of, like, if you're in a field, you should want the best for that field, regardless of man or woman. Okay, like if you're into STEM, you want the best STEM people in there, man or woman. You don't want to marginalize it because of your preconceived notions of that. So yeah, and if you're in the chat, think of a good clapback for her. You know, think of a good clapback and upvote the best one. Rex Tullis, which is a friend of mine, he says your clapback should be that you are succeeding. So your success and your thriving is your clapback. Even if you are, in a sense, you gave the best comeback to where you were quiet if you want to be, but you showed him like how much more you can be, perhaps even more than whatever he is.
Yeah, probably. Success is always the best, clap back. Sometimes it's easier to just let people be stupid, let them talk and just walk away. But personally, I worried about that comment a lot, which I shouldn't have, but it made me think a lot, you know, it really hurt my feelings.
Well, obviously a lot of people will support you. A lot of people disagree with you. I think it's always the negative ones that stick out in our mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is bad.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. Oh, just to address the quick question, someone asked what we did to promote the podcast, because there's relatively few people here compared to the 60,000 that she has on Instagram. And like, I think I just hit 220,000 on TikTok. So like almost 300,000 combined. It's harder to get people to click on things. Okay. That's the thing, especially to watch an hour or maybe 2 hour podcast. It's hard to get people to click on things if you are into social media. Like you might have 200,000 followers, but like just to experiment, if you're like, click on this website, and then all the website does is count, it's lower than what you might think.
Yeah.
And that actually brings me up to a point that I'll bring up later, but we're on the STEM thing. So what other adversities or challenges do you think you face as a woman in STEM? This is a question that we got from a follower.
So in my working field, like working as an engineer or just working in other like student jobs I had so far, I always felt really respected and really comfortable. Even though I was working with a lot of older men, I always felt great about what I was doing, and they always made me feel great, even though I was a young woman, which is how it should be, you know. But outside of my studies or outside of my jobs I had some negative experiences with like people not taking you seriously, or people like I had one time I was doing a speech. I told you about that. I was doing a speech, and after that speech, a man came up to me, and he wanted to ask like really specific questions about cars to just see me fail at those questions. So he could like say for him, oh yeah, she's not that good. She's not that good. You know, she talks about engineering stuff, but she doesn't really know stuff. And that's a thing that happens a lot actually, because a lot of people, or a lot of men in that case, want to feel better about themselves when they see a woman in their field. So
the gatekeeping, I guess, would be a word for it, where it's like, well, you're not really engineer unless you know this specific thing.
Right. And that's something I don't really like. But yeah, that happened.
But you answered all the questions?
I tried to answer the questions, but I was feeling really uncomfortable because you know that was like stuff you don't learn in university. That's stuff that's like really specific for a really specific car. He asked me a question, and I didn't know that. You know, why should I know that? I had no reason to know that. But he felt better about himself. I saw that.
Well, you know, so he's probably insecure about himself, and using you as a step ladder. That actually leads me to a point that another question that we got, and we got a lot of questions from the live stream last night. So if you're here from last night, thank you for all your questions. Does your mom? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You were gone for a second. I don't know if it's my connection or yours.
It might be mine. I don't know. It just suddenly disappeared. It didn't give me a notification, but it said, does being a model cause other people to look down on you while being in the field that you're in STEM? Do the people who find out about your Instagram stuff, your online stuff, have they looked down on you because of that? They think it's not serious engineering work?
So far, what I've experienced, I'm not too in a working field. I don't talk a lot about my Instagram stuff. Like people find out eventually, but it's not like a big topic at a working environment, you know. So it's not really a big deal for them. So I've never experienced that people weren't taking me serious because of that. But that might be because I also take like more casual photos for Instagram, in a t-shirt and jeans maybe, which is more like the sporty casual look. It's not like there's a lot more provocative photos on Instagram, and like people see a lot more provocative or nude stuff on
Right.
Instagram, which I don't, so I don't really have a
Right.
problem with that. I do really casual photos, so I've never experienced like anybody judging me for that, which you shouldn't do in no case, none at
Right.
all.
Of
But
course.
yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that I'll bring up, and it's related because it's a perfect segue. If you haven't seen Shireen's Instagram, like she does take a lot of modeling photos, but they are you know they're more classy than some of the Instagram models you might see, to where they are nude or almost nude. And she's right that we shouldn't necessarily like shame them or look down upon them for that. But just to give an example for anyone who is looking up to Shireen and maybe inspired by her, she can it's a side hustle for her, and that's something she can grow um, more so than, because she talks about her engineering and she imbues a lot of her own skills. So you don't have to just be about your looks. And that brings up this, I was watching this clip on YouTube, I believe, and it was this entrepreneur speaker who was talking to a guest who mentioned that he had a client who was an Instagram model. But I mean, an Instagram model in the sense that she didn't do modeling gigs. She just posted bikini shots of herself. And she created an ebook that she wanted, a course that she wanted to sell to her followers. She had like 6 million followers, a lot.
Wow.
And they were saying that the course wasn't really selling. And they were like, why is this? And the course was called How to Get a Girl Like Me. And if you sell anything to 6 million people, some people are going to buy it, but it wasn't anywhere near what she thought. And they were asking why, and they took a look at the thing, and how she portrayed herself, whether right or wrong, on Instagram and social media. People watched her and they liked her, but they did not respect her enough to where they would buy a course from her. So if you're building yourself up, it's important not just to be seeking the eyeballs and the attention, perhaps, but to actually be building a brand and to represent your true self. And that's something that's worked well for her, perhaps more than some other people on Instagram or social media. Just my thought on that.
Yeah, I think very alike. I agree with you. People can do whatever they want on Instagram, and I follow a lot of girls who post like pretty pictures in bikinis, and I enjoy looking at that.
Yeah,
It's not a bad thing, but
me too.
you can post bikini pictures and be a really smart and educated woman, but
Right.
on the other side, you can also be like a bit dumb and do that kind of
Right.
stuff. So it depends really on your character and not on your pictures and how many people like your pictures, but how many people like your character and want to learn something from you. And if you try to sell an ebook with your skills, or maybe how to get a girl like me, I don't know, that's not a good thing for an ebook, right?
Right. Um, right. And it's also being about, this is more like entrepreneur stuff, because some people want to start their own social media brand. So this, if you're wondering why we're talking about this is kind of related. It's an online brand building discussion. And a lot of it is about being self-aware about what your audience wants. Some people are trying to build an online audience and they're wondering about how to build from like 50 followers to 100 followers. You have to be self-aware about what your audience wants. Like if I posted bikini photos of myself, I would lose followers. Okay. If I posted, if I made a course called How to Get a Guy Like Me, or a lot of people think I'm a woman still, so How to Get a Girl Like Hampton, it wouldn't sell. Now I have a feeling it would sell one or two. Some people would just want to buy it just because they think it's funny, but it wouldn't sell. So you have to be aware about what your followers want and how to serve your audience. One more question from last night, and then I'll start getting to today's. How does a woman that wants to be a model get over the industry qualifications and expectations like size and height? So if they want to be a model, but they don't necessarily meet the usual standards or like what people usually want in a model, how can she overcome that?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this because personally, I don't actually have a lot of experience with agencies, but I know that there are a lot of agencies for different types of models. Even if you're not like the tall, skinny type of model, you might be a plus size model. There's agencies that only sign plus size models, or if you're like the standard classic beauty. That would be searched for a standard model, but you're really small, you're not one of the tall girls. There are actually agencies that search for those models for commercials, because commercials are usually done with not so tall women like me, because it would look kind of awkward if a really
Oh,
tall
really?
woman did like in a field of smaller people, you know.
Right.
Yeah, there's agencies who are probably looking exactly for your type, and you just have to find them. And another tip I would give you, if you're actually looking for an agency to sign you, would probably be, don't let them scam you, because there are a lot of agencies that use people's trust, and they tell you, yeah, you need to have to pay money so we can sign you, and that's not the case. You never, with a good agency, you might have to pay for some photo shoots to get like Polaroids and stuff like that they can show clients, but most of those agencies actually tell you, you don't have to pay it now, you can pay it off with the jobs you're getting through us later.
Makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, which makes a lot more sense. So don't let them scam you if you want to get signed by an agency.
Okay. Well, actually, that's actually an interesting question I thought of last night. It's something that a lot of people may not think of. Do you have to be good looking to be a model?
Uh, Not really. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's for everyone. It's different how you define good looking, you know, because
Right. Exactly.
in the modeling industry, there are actually most of the models that work for Gucci or Prada are not like the conventional beauty. They look for really special faces, you know, with a really prominent bone structure, or eyes that are wide apart, or teeth with this little gap, which is not essentially considered beautiful by society, but it's like a high fashion standard. So that's one point. And the other point is, mostly people that are really have like a lot of character in their face are the ones that are looked for the most, because you mostly do advertising as a model. That's your main job, and you want to stay in people's heads. That's why brands look for people that look, you know, different, or stay in your head longer.
Okay, so being that makes a lot of sense, because I mean, it used to be like, even now people think to be a model you have to be good looking, but I mean, they're always looking, I feel, for models that represent people, because most people are not, in the words of Derek Zoolander, really ridiculously good looking. Most people are not. Well, no, by like society's model standards, of course. So they always want people to represent the average person. That exists. So
yeah, another thing. Oh, sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted to add something for the things you just said, because what most people don't realize is that models don't always look the way they look on magazines or in social media. You know, a model, after her day is done, she takes off all of her makeup and she looks like a person. You know, models don't always look like models. That's completely normal. And of course, you always see like those beautiful commercials with the beautiful hair and the beautiful makeup, and that's all fine, and those models are beautiful, but at the end of the day, when their job is done, they're normal people.
Right. They're normal people. So don't let the model shoots intimidate you. If you want to be a model or just in your everyday life, because that's not necessarily reality coming from a model herself. So from the horse's mouth, from the person herself. So no, but what I was saying was that's an interesting distinction, and very good, very concise answer, that it's not necessarily being good looking by like the universal standard, but by being distinctive is a way you can gain advantage of being a model. And that's interesting. I learned something. I've learned a lot of things in the hour and a half that we've been doing this. So thank you so much for that. And we will wrap up soon, but I want to get to some of the questions if you have time for in the live stream.
I have a little bit of time left.
Yeah. We'll finish them, and then we'll sign off so Shireen can do her thing. Someone asked, well, that's a very important thing. What are some places you guys need to visit in your lifetime? So Shireen, to you first, you're the guest. What are some places you need to visit in your lifetime?
So I've actually never been outside of Europe. So I'd love to visit the USA sometime, and maybe also South of America, because that's where my boyfriend is from, Bolivia. And so those are the main two places. And of course, as the normal stereotypical European girl, I want to visit New York. That's on my list. Yeah. What about you?
See, So far I have been to different places in Europe. Spent some time as far as like living in a house in Germany, Italy. Went through Switzerland, didn't really stay there. I've been to China, Taiwan, and different places in the US. So I've traveled a decent amount for someone who doesn't like love traveling. I don't hate it, but like some people love traveling. It's their hobby. I would love to go back, spend more time in Italy. Really, Italy, I like the culture. Not necessarily always the politics, but the separate thing. But I like the culture. I like the food. I like the people. Some people jokingly say that I have Italian blood because I'm always using my hands in my videos. And I like opera. So yeah, I love to visit Italy. I like to take my girlfriend to Taiwan. If anyone my parents are from Taiwan. If anyone is looking for a place to go, Taiwan is very beautiful. In my opinion, it's because I've been to China and Taiwan. Just my personal opinion, I like Taiwan a little bit more. It's like, for me, it was the parts I loved about China condensed. So there's the ocean, there's beautiful mountains if you want to go there, there's great food, there's a night market. If you are from America or you just speak English, it's not hard to find lots of people who speak English there. If you go into like a more rural countryside area, you might have some difficulty finding some people who speak English, but it's very English friendly. They get a lot of tourists. I love to visit there with my girlfriend. And I'd like to go across the US sometime. I like to go to Canada, but I mean, I'd like to go through the States at some point. If I can this would be a cool thing if you have a side hustle later on, whether it's modeling or not, is I like to be able to do something online to where I could travel day to day, to where I would spend some hours every day traveling to different states in the US, and I would work online. So I'd be able to work while traveling, hopefully with my girlfriend, or it will be with my girlfriend if I do that. And just different places in the US, Canada, just hit most of the areas in the world that are friendly, I guess, and not war zones, just so I can experience that. Yeah, that's my answer. And someone said, do you have any things on your to-do list? So other than just traveling, anything you want to do before you pass away?
That's a really hard question, actually, because I don't really have a to-do list. A lot of people have like jumping out of a plane on their to-do list or something similar to that.
Right.
I don't really have something like that. I would have never imagined my life to be this exciting at this point. So I'm really glad that all happened, all the rallies I drove. That's a lot of fun. And I would like to continue that way, just that life surprised me with all that good stuff.
Right. As far as for me, honestly, there's not a lot of regrets I have in my life. A few of them. Some of them are a little deeper. I won't get into that here. But I really believe that we have the capacity to change ourselves as we see fit. I mean, it's just like I see your life, the way you're born and how you are now, as the hand you're dealt in poker. Okay, so you get the cards. You have a good hand. Some people have better hands, but it's the hand you have. And if you're playing certain kinds of poker, you can change that. So you play with the hand you're dealt, and you can make the best of your life. So really, what I would like to do is I'd like to build what I have now. I like to do what I'm doing now is my favorite thing I've done so far, which is fitness content, health content. I'd like to spread that to lots of people in the world. For those of you that are familiar with my content, and not to dominate the podcast, I have a couple of messages I want to spread. Actually a few more than two, but right now I'm spreading. Number one is that you don't have to let anybody. So what I'm saying is I want to spread this to the world. You don't have to let anybody sell you your own health and fitness. Like with calisthenics, it's body weight. You don't need to buy anything necessarily. Someone wants to sell you $1,000 piece of equipment. You don't need to buy that. And number two is you don't have to be fit to be happy. You don't have to be wealthy to be happy. You don't have to be successful to be happy. You deserve to be happy right now. So on my to-do list, definitely continue what I'm doing and spread those messages to the world. And with that, I think we'll start to wrap up. Do you have anything you want to say? Because I know you want to get to your dinner. I don't want to take too much of your time, but really, this has been a really fun podcast. I think it's the longest one so far. And I really had a lot of fun doing it. So thank you for joining. It was really, really great. Do you have anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, thank you again for inviting me to that podcast. That's the first podcast I've ever done, the first live thing I've ever done, even though our audience wasn't that big now. I think that was a really chill podcast and really nice people, really nice comments. I was happy that people were commenting so much. And yeah, I love doing that. Maybe we can do another one.
Yeah, I love to, even in a couple of months, even, or if you have a podcast, I'd love to be a guest on that. I will do my best to promote that. Is there anything you want to promote before we sign off? Your Instagram, of course. Anything else?
Yeah, maybe if you like my content on Instagram, you can follow me. If you would consider doing that, I'd be happy. But yeah, just live your life, be confident. Thanks for listening. Thanks for commenting and being here with us for almost 2 hours now.
Right, right. So thank you to everyone who joined. This is really a very fun podcast for me. I hope it was fun for you guys. You can always send me suggestions at hampton@hybridcalisthenics.com. Or if you know someone that would like to do a podcast, send me a suggestion and we'll do that. We'll go ahead and sign off now. Thank you so much, Shireen. I'm going to stop the stream. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Okay, so the stream is stopped. I will stop the recording.
All right.